I'm Annie Puffett. I am the Director of Career Development here at Upper Iowa University, and I would like to welcome everyone to this evening's edition of our Alumni Speaker Series. We are joined by Dominic Hillesheim. He is a 2018 Marketing and Communication alum from our Fayette campus. So I would like to welcome you, Dom. On behalf of Dr. Duffy and the university community, I'd like to welcome you. I know you were back on campus for homecoming, so it was great to be able to see you then, but also nice to be able to showcase you now through our Alumni Speaker Series. So it's always wonderful when our alums are able to connect through this opportunity and speak about what they did while they were at Upper Iowa, what they have done since then, and how other students might be able to learn from what you have done, are doing, other things you did in school, and just really be able to help them network and connect in their field. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. And I know that there are several things that you want to talk about, but why don't you just talk a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself quick, Dom?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do this with you guys. But yeah, like you said, my name is Dominic Hillesheim. I'm originally from Northeast Wisconsin, so about 30 minutes south of Green Bay. So after high school, came down to Upper Iowa around 2014 to 2018. Spent 4 years there. Like you said, marketing and communication studies with a sports emphasis for my two majors, and also played on the baseball team, as well as a couple other organizations and different groups on campus that I was involved in. And then after graduation in 2018, I came to Chicago and started what's my dream job with the Bears 3 days later after graduation. So it was a quick change from small town Fayette to the third largest city in America. So it was a little bit of a change there for me. But then have been here for the last 4 or 5 years ever since, working for the Bears in a couple different job roles and titles, kind of working my way around a couple different departments. But that's where I am now. So it's a little bit about me. A couple other organizations that I was involved in at Upper Iowa was the AZP fraternity that we started on campus. Fellowship of Christian Athletes, gave tours on campus, like I said, the baseball team, and had a couple internships on campus as well.
And you are also out in Chicago, part of a nonprofit organization. Would you mind telling everyone what that nonprofit is that you're a part of?
Yeah, definitely. So 2019, we started a nonprofit called Chi-Town Blankets. So it's a pretty simple mission. We're just trying to warm up the city of Chicago one blanket at a time. So what we do is we collect new and gently used blankets and donations from anybody really, people in Chicago or all over the world. We've had donations from a couple different countries, and we take those in, we wash and clean the blankets, and we roll them up, tie them up, and go out to the streets and hit the shelters of Chicago and donate blankets directly back to the people who need them most.
And that was also started by a couple other Upper Iowa individuals as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So there's 3 of us that are on the board. There's 9 of us on the board. 3 of us went to Upper Iowa, and all the 2 other guys were also in that fraternity as well on campus. So when we started the fraternity on campus, we wanted to be a little bit different. Obviously, everybody has their emphasis or whatever the groups try to do, but we wanted it to be more like a business and community relations fraternity. So when we were on campus, we did different things like work with the food shelf in Fayette. So we trick-or-treated for canned goods, and did a couple other things, like we hired on a photographer and donated professional headshots to students on campus. So really just tried to give back. And with that thought process, that's kind of how the 3 of us ended up starting Chi-Town Blankets with the other crew as well, but just kept that initial thought from the fraternity that we learned on campus, kept that thought going, and then that popped up a year later after we got to Chicago.
Awesome. And before I go any further, I would be remiss if I did not introduce Dr. Carla Gavin, who is our Dean for the School of Business and Professional Studies located here on the Fayette campus specifically. She was a faculty member while you were here. And so she is also joining us this evening to hear your story as well. So welcome to Dr. Gavin this evening.
Thank you very much.
I know one of the main things that you wanted to share with our audience is how your involvement in campus clubs and organizations really set you up for much of how you started your career with the Bears. Can you talk about your experience? I know you've mentioned some of the groups and organizations you were involved in, but can you talk about your experience with them on campus and the impact that it has had on you?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that I realized right away is a lot of people just see Fayette or Upper Iowa and they think it's really small. But one of the things, like I think it was my first fall break when my parents, I went home and they asked like how it was going. And I just said, well, I think Fayette's a place that's as big or as small as you make it. So I think some people don't really dig too deep. They come on a campus tour or they're there for first couple of weeks and their first reaction is that it's small and that's it. They kind of write it off. But in my opinion, it's as big or as small as you make it, like I said. So one of the things that's really cool with what I'm doing right now with the Bears is I had an internship in college that I would come work for the Bears during training camp. So during the summers, and I would take that opportunity to come back, work in the sports, just kind of try to get my foot in the door. And when I was in Fayette, I had an internship with the athletic department with Brock Wismiller, who's no longer there, but he was in the athletic department. I got to work hand in hand with him. Because in Fayette, the one part that is a little bit small is like the athletic department. There's not a lot of people working in there. So a lot of people are doing multiple jobs. So when I was a freshman, I walked in to Brock's office and just kind of asked how I could help. And right away, he offered to have me learn from him and do some great things. He was an awesome mentor for me. But my point in this is when I would go back to Chicago for the internship in the summer, a lot of the other kids that went to quote unquote big schools from Alabama or Mississippi State or anything from down south, their opportunities within the athletic department was not anywhere close to anything that I got to experience in the athletic department. So it kind of set me up for success in the future because it set me apart because they would do things like just like take tickets or, park cars or different things like that. Whereas I got to work with Brock and like interact with our partners or set up displays and run out of class quick to park the tractors for ag day, like different things like that people wouldn't really have those experiences. So that was really awesome for me. And I think that's one of the big things that there's just so many opportunities at Upper Iowa that you almost just have to ask and show that you're interested in learning different things. And there's tons of people all over campus that'll help you and get you involved and show you and teach you. So kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but bottom line is there's tons of opportunities and it's not the little small place that you can drive down the highway. It's a lot bigger with a lot more opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you. I know you talked a little bit already about Chi-Town Blankets, but it's really taking off, your nonprofit organization. Can you talk about the inspiration surrounding that and how it came to be? Yeah,
definitely. So we, back in 2019, I went on a trip to see the Bears play the Redskins at the time, now the Commanders, in Washington, DC. And we went to a Baltimore Orioles baseball game while we were out there. It was the last game of the season, so it was fan appreciation. When we walked in, they gave my dad and I a blanket as the giveaway. So went to the game. It was, I think, in October, late October. So it wasn't that cold out there. So we kind of just put the blanket in our backpack and went about the rest of the weekend. Didn't really think anything of it. Came back to Chicago a couple of weeks later, went to another baseball game here in town for the White Sox. And on my way home, saw a man sleeping outside pretty close to my apartment. And the only thing that I could really think about was that blanket that was just sitting on my couch from the trip. So walked home and grabbed the blanket and gave it to the man, covered him up. And then when I was walking back home, the only thing that I could think about was how many more people probably needed the blankets. So went back home, hopped on my phone, made a little group text with the two guys that were in AZP. They were coming into Chicago actually to work the Bears game. Kind of full circle. They also worked for the Bears part-time. They were coming in the next day, and I was like, hey guys, this is what happened yesterday. Like, we're going to make a nonprofit. And by the time they got to Chicago, I had a logo drawn up and a website created. And we just made one small Facebook post and said, hey, this is what we're doing. We're trying to donate 100 blankets before Christmas. So we had about 2.5 months to do it, and the outpouring of support was crazy. They're both from Iowa, so a lot of their family and friends in Iowa, as well as Upper Iowa campus, reached out, donated blankets. I'm from Wisconsin, like I said, so there was people donating there. Illinois, and then NBC Chicago got wind of it. The news station picked it up, and that kind of started it. So now we have 9 people on our team. Everybody's a volunteer. We're recognized in the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago as a 501c3 nonprofit, which really helps us as well, because when people give to us, then we can give back to them with donation receipts and recognition and things like that. And we've donated over just under 4,000 blankets so far. And we have our biggest event of the year coming up, which is called Blitz the City this weekend, where we go out to the streets of Chicago and try to donate as many blankets as we can in one day. So last year we did 1,007. So our goal this year is 1,008.
There you go.
but yeah, bottom line is we just try to give back to the city and the people that need it most. And we don't really have any means of making money or anything like that other than donations. So anybody that gives us blankets or donations, it goes right back out to the people. So it's really a team effort, which is the best part.
Would you say that your experience in the AZP fraternity contributed to kind of starting this up? I know that the other individuals from Upper Iowa were part of that as well, but the volunteerism that you were doing throughout that fraternity, would you say that kind of helped with launching Chi-Town Blankets as well?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. I think the things that we may have been doing in the fraternity were a little bit smaller scale, but the group in general, just having everybody wanting to do good in the community of Fayette, or that support that everybody showed each other, and just the fun that you could have trick-or-treating as a college student to houses in Fayette, just like having that fun and everybody wanting to do good for the community. I think that definitely helped increase the nonprofit and just keep it going, definitely.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the day-to-day of what you do in your current role and how your degree and what you learned at Upper Iowa plays a role in that?
Yeah, so right now I'm a partnership activation specialist. So pretty long for basically what happens is we have a sales team that works with corporate partners. So they go out to the partners, try to work through and negotiate a deal. And whenever the contract comes to terms or is completed, they loop in our activation team, which is what I'm on. We have about 8 or 9 of us on the team. But as an activation person, what we do is we look through the contract and we look at everything that's listed in the deal. And then we make sure that all gets executed. And then we have day-to-day contact with the partner representative. So we talk with them probably almost every day, weekly for sure, and just check in on hey, these are the outstanding things that we still have to do. And then checking in, kind of giving them recaps to say here's how this went. We hit these 3 goals of yours. What's your feedback? Let's see how we can change it. So day to day, most of it is communication back and forth with partners, and then also internally. So one of my favorite things about my job is I get to work with every department internally, which is really fun. So if we have, for example, one of my partners has, they sponsor the halftime score of every single game. So in order to promote that, I work with our social team, and then we make sure that their logo's in the right place and it's getting sent out on the like X, Y, and Z social channels, and they're tagged this way so they can get recognition. So that's just one example, but definitely get to work with every other department. And then I'd say the other thing is that every day is different for me because I have so many different partners that have multiple different things within their deal. So every day is different, which I like, but then we get to work with different partners and different people. So a lot of communication back and forth and organizing different things, but it's all fun. So I love it.
Great. You've talked a little bit about your internship within the athletics department. Can you talk about how some of the skills you developed during that internship helped translate to what you're currently doing now and what you did even as joining the Bears initially?
Yeah. So like I said before, with working with Brock in the athletic department, I got to pretty much see everything that he did and got to pick and choose what I wanted to learn or what I wanted to focus on. So it definitely, a lot of things I learned definitely directly translated to what I was doing. And early in my internship and when I first became full-time, I was in the events and entertainment department. So basically a Bears event planner. So we have game days and then fan events. And like I was talking about training camp before, that's one of the events that I was heavily involved in. And for Brock, he challenged me, I think like my junior year, and just said, hey, we have a educator appreciation and kids day at the football games. And I kind of want you to take that over and bring some ideas from the Bears back to Fayette, see what you can do. So when I was working training camp in the summer, I just kept that in the back of my head and was like, all right, what can we do? Or what can I pick up here that we can bring back to Fayette on a smaller scale or a little bit different? So here at the Bears, we have what we call our mascot's name, Staley. And so at kids events, we have an area called Staley's Corner. And that's where he goes and signs autographs and has a tent and does little skits and plays music and things like that. So that was the big idea that I brought back to Fayette that year. And we created Pete's Place. So it was a little a tented area that we had like autographs in a little mailbox where kids could write letters to Pete. And there was pictures and the cheerleaders came before the football game and we had different games and things like that. So it seems pretty simple, but having to like think through that and then bring it back and execute it and work through it all. We had a face painter there and stuff like that. So I got my first interaction with like making a contract through Upper Iowa and getting that signed and getting the payment back and forth. So what I learned from the Bears, I brought back to Upper Iowa, and then that experience in turn helped me when I had to come back and do it myself here at the Bears. So directly helped me with what I'm doing day to day, which is awesome.
And a great resume builder too.
Yeah, absolutely. I still use those pictures.
Great. I'm not sure if we covered this earlier, and I don't know if we heard how, but how did you get involved with the Bears training camps? Like you being from Wisconsin and, coming to Iowa and then going to Illinois, how were you able to get involved with the Bears? Did you have any connections to be able to go there throughout the summer?
That's a good question. So my family, I have a lot of family in northwest suburbs of Chicago. So okay. I was raised right as a Bears fan. So no question there. So I've always been interested in the Bears. And when I was little, that was one of my goals, was to work for the Bears forever. I didn't really know what it was, but I wanted to work for the Bears. And every summer we post the position, or in March we post the position and interview like graduating high schoolers and college kids. So just started the process that way and the posting, and then went to Soldier Field and interviewed, and then was able to do that every summer. So just kept looking out for the posting and information about it, and that's kind of how it happened.
And is that something that still happens throughout the summer? If there are Upper Iowa students who are interested in communication, marketing, sports communication, whatever the area may be, is that something that is still offered, that they potentially could reach out to you and find more information about that opportunity?
Yeah, definitely. They can reach out, or we post everything on chicagobears.com/jobs. So it's a little different since I did it. Good or bad, whatever you want to look at. It probably doesn't qualify for an internship anymore because
Okay.
that's not what we posted as, but it's a part-time job.
Okay.
So you do get paid for it, which is a bonus, and you can probably use it as an independent study and at least write about it and do reports and projects on it. So it might count that way. But yeah, there's definitely tons of opportunity for people that are looking to get into sports here at the Bears for sure.
All right. It's important for us all to know who we are, regardless of what stage we are in our career, and be able to set some goals on where we see ourselves headed professionally. What are some key points that you can share with our audience tonight about how we can take who we are and continue to grow with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the most important thing would just be to be willing to continue to learn throughout your entire career, and especially young in your career, is just continue to learn, because there's so many things, even experts that are just about to retire, there's so many things that they don't know, or you have to be willing to learn. And whenever you start to be complacent, then somebody else behind you is going to pass you up, or get that promotion that you're looking for. So I would say just continue to learn, and try to set realistic goals with yourself. Obviously, aspirations are great to grow and do that really fast, but I think being realistic is probably the most important thing. And one thing that we do here is we set what we call SMART goals, or measurable goals, which I'm sure it's not very unique. A lot of people do that, but I think understanding why you do that is probably the biggest thing too, because if you make a goal to be the best employee you can be, or be the best employee at Upper Iowa, for example, obviously that's great and you definitely should do that. But if you look at it, how do you measure that? What does that mean? So if you don't have traits or ways that you can measure it, probably with numbers or deadlines or months or different things like that, measurable things, most of the time you're going to look at that and think that you failed, but you're not really going to know why. So if you can look at that and say, I want to be the best employee and get $5,000 sponsorship or something like that, and you exceed that, then you know that you hit your goal. Or at least if you didn't exceed that, then you can at least see how far off you were and do that. So I would just say set realistic goals so you can be realistic with yourself when looking into that too.
Great, thank you. Making connections and networking is so important with helping for advancement in our fields. And I think something that you have seen along the way over the last 9 years in helping to pursue our dreams as well. What would you say is your biggest piece of advice to making connections and how others can accomplish that?
Yeah, I think just doing a little research and putting yourself out there for sure, just being willing to do that, because even though some people think Upper Iowa is small, the alumni base is huge. So even if you just wanted to stay within Upper Iowa, there's so many different connections or ways that people are involved in sports, if that's what you're looking for, or whatever career path really. So just being willing to put yourself out there and ask the question, and be comfortable with being uncomfortable too, because the first time you put yourself out there, it's obviously a little nerve-wracking depending on who you're trying to talk to. But the first time you do it, you might be nervous, and then the second time, it feels a little bit better. Third time, it feels even better. So just being willing to, do the research, see if there are connections within Upper Iowa or people that that you could reach out to, and then just being willing to do that, and be comfortable trying to grow and learn, like we just said before. Just grow and learn how to do that, how you can interact with that, and put yourself out there for sure. I know it's kind of cliche, but LinkedIn's awesome. So that's a great way to see where people work, or to see if you can make connections with there, and just get used to sometimes people probably won't respond, but it takes obviously more than one time to reach out to if you really want to pursue something or make a connection. So just keep trying.
And sometimes all it takes is one response from someone to open the floodgates, open the doors. So definitely, absolutely, yeah. That's wonderful. Career readiness it's a pretty hot topic in the area of career services right now, and among employers as well, in making sure that our students are ready to enter the workforce and know what employers are looking for, what competencies do you feel are most important in helping our students and alums excel in their career goals, and why?
Yeah, I think teamwork and communication are probably the two biggest things that I would go back to over and over, because unless you're going to own your own business and not work with anybody else ever in your life, teamwork is going to be huge. And in turn with that is communication, because if you're working with a team, you have to be able to communicate with them effectively so you guys can get the job done. So the one good thing about Upper Iowa and most colleges now, I guess, is that teamwork and group projects are so prevalent. People do it all the time. So you get that experience with your classes and going into that with all different facets of it. Obviously, there's online classes or in-person classes. So you can learn different things. Like we're sitting here on Zoom right now. So sometimes you have classes online where you'll learn different ways to communicate that way, or you'll be in person. Or you have a mix. So it's great, and it really translates to the real world. And then I'd say I just hit home on communication again, because you're going to be working with tons of different people with different levels of experience and different personalities. So being able to treat everybody the same and communicate differently, so then it hits with how they learn best or communicate best. That's probably the two biggest things I would say for sure.
How would you encourage others to improve their skills and competencies to ensure that they are career ready?
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways to try to do that. But one of the biggest things, like we talked about before, is just being willing to learn. So if you can try to challenge yourself, if you know, like when we said set realistic goals, if you can see what your, I guess, quote unquote weaknesses are, look at ways that you can try to improve those. So if there's different classes that you can take, or YouTube videos that you can watch on how you can improve those different things, I would say just be willing to identify what your weaknesses are or what you're not so good at, and just being willing to work on it. Because it's always, I like sports examples, but it's always easy to practice what you're really good at. If you go into sports, if you're really good at hitting, it's super fun to go into the batting cage and just hit all the time because you're good at it. But if you're not so good at fielding, it's not as fun to go practice that. But if you can go put your time and invest your time and energy into that, and help yourself out and make yourself better, just being willing to do that is key.
All right. Are there any final pieces of advice that you would give to UIU students, alums, and other members of the UIU community that are joining us this evening?
I would say just reach out and ask for help. I'd say there's sometimes I've talked in different classes or things like that, and you say, like, if you have questions, reach out. Here's my information. I never hear from anybody. And I know there's a lot of different alumni that say the same thing, or people in our careers that say the same thing. So I personally love helping like college kids or people that are interested. So I know there's a lot of other people that agree with me in my career and in other careers too. So if you're interested, just reach out and definitely ask the questions, because if you don't, you're never going to know what the answer is to your question or what different people think. So I would say just definitely ask and reach out and look for those pieces of information or advice, because there's definitely people that are willing to give it to you.
Absolutely. That is one of the best things about our alums, is that they are willing and eager to help our students and help other alums as well. So most definitely, us within the Office of Career Development, we do have Dom's contact information. And if you are interested in connecting with him regarding anything that he talked about tonight, or what he's doing in his career, what are ways that you can try and do and follow along in that regard as well, definitely let the Office of Career Development know, and we can get you in touch with Dom. And as we wrap up tonight, I would just like to thank Dom again for joining us for the Alumni Speaker Series this evening, and encourage everyone to tune in for the next edition of the Alumni Speaker Series when we are back in January after the holidays. So again, thank you, Dom, and thank you, Dr. Gavin, for joining us as well. And we hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.